All right, awesome. I think it's working now. So, Margaret, if you want to start by telling me a little bit about who you are and what you do so that folks watching the video know, we'll get started.
Awesome. Hey guys, my name's Margaret Earl. I'm a professional dog trainer. I've been certified for the past 10 years. I was certified at National Canine as well as Chelsea, right? Is that where
Yep,
you were certified?
yep.
And I worked under some trainers for a while, and now I've been operating Purpose Driven Canine for the last 5 years. I started out at my house, and we've grown to the point now that I have a commercial space. We actually have over 3,000 square feet, um, and we're expanding. So now I have a kennel staff. It's so nice not to have to potty dogs by myself anymore. And we just posted an ad that we're hiring a trainer, and we're going to open a doggy daycare. So along the way in my dog training career, I fell in love with Doodles, specifically golden Doodles.
Mm-hmm.
I like a lot of Doodles, but golden Doodles are definitely my favorite. And as this obsession grew, I've taken my passion for training into breeding. So now that I breed dogs, and I would consider that more part-time because we only have 1 to 2 litters a year.
Mm-hmm.
I use a lot of my just training philosophies and things as I raise my puppies, which is
Right.
super fun and rewarding.
And now remind me the name of your kennel again if somebody's curious to look you up.
So my dog training is Purpose Driven Canine. My
Right.
breeding is Gertie's Golden Doodles.
Gertie's, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and are all your puppies local, or do you end up with people from different states? And
Oh, yeah, we send them all over the country. And so people seek us out because we do all of the health testing, and we're in the Golden Doodle Association of North America. And they have really strict requirements to get in. So we get a lot of the people that have high standards. So I actually sell more puppies out of state than I do in state.
okay, nice. So, as trainers, we both see a lot of people who kind of haphazardly end up with purebred puppies from breeders who are sometimes more questionable. So when folks are looking, what are the things that they should be asking, maybe specifically a doodle breeder, but I'm sure some of those questions overlap with any breed.
Yeah, I think a lot of them do overlap. So the first one is health testing. That's like just so important that they are doing all of the health testing. So as a person purchasing a puppy, you need to be familiar with what tests do I need to ask for.
Right.
So the highest amount of health testing you can get from a breeder would be the OFA of hips, elbows, patellas,
Mm-hmm.
heart, eyes, and then genetic testing for each particular breed. So I do the poodle and the golden retriever.
Okay.
And then, of course, some breeders don't do all of that. But, as long as they're doing most of them, personally, I'd prefer to find a breeder that does all of the health testing they could possibly do.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing you want to ask is, so how do they socialize the puppies? And an easy thing you can ask would be, do you raise with puppy culture or Avidog? So that would be a breeder that uses a specific protocol that's been researched and done over and over again that consistently produces well-rounded dogs. But let's say you ask someone, what's your socialization protocol? You want to hear that they get to go outside and they have things to climb on and say hi to. You would prefer a breeder that would allow visitors. And a lot of breeders have that excuse, they're worried about their puppies getting sick and parvo, which is totally valid. But as long as you're taking the precautions,
Right.
I don't see the issue. And I think that can be a cop-out for some breeders to just kind of slack off in their breeding program, and then these puppies end up being raised in these very stale environments. And by the time they go home, it's their first time seeing the world. So that's one thing we try to do is we always are adding new things into their environment so that way they know how to say hi to strange objects. The next thing is, when do the buyers select their puppy? And
Mhm.
a big red flag for me is any breeder that makes you pick your puppy under 5 weeks of age.
Mm.
Like literally every puppy is exactly the same under 5 weeks of age. By the time they're 6, 7 weeks, and even between 6 and 7 weeks, you see a huge difference between each puppy. That's when they develop their personalities. You can actually see the differences in each puppy, but before that, they're just all little cute little lumps of fur balls,
Right.
right? And people are picking off a color and trying to assume that, oh, that puppy must be cuddlier because it walked up to the strange person or whatnot, just making assumptions. And I just think that's dangerous to pick
Sure.
a puppy that way. And I've been there. I got a Chihuahua puppy that I picked at like 2 weeks of age.
Nice.
And when I brought this puppy home, it was terrified of everything. It was not cuddly. It was super independent. And I was like, I learned a big lesson. Thankfully, the breeder was willing to take the puppy back. I was like, after working through a lot of socialization issues with my oldest dog, Teddy, I was like, I don't want to do this again. I wanted an outgoing puppy to work with. So I definitely learned my mistake there.
Right.
Um, the next thing is temperament testing. So a lot of breeders don't temperament test, and
Mhm.
it's really nice if they do have some sort of temperament testing in place because it does give you information on what are the puppy's strengths and weaknesses. So what do you need to work on?
Mhm.
Um, but at very least, you would want to find a breeder that would let you temperament test when you're picking a puppy.
Sure.
So maybe they don't have a temperament test program, but they would be willing to allow you to do that. To choose your own puppy would be important, which is actually how I got Gertie and Ingrid. I got the breeder to wait until 6 weeks of age, and I did
Nice.
the bull hard, and
Mhm.
they pretty much turned out like the test predicted. Specifically for Doodles, though, the allergies is a big concern, and you hear it all over the place about how my Doodle sheds or I'm allergic to my Doodle. And like just breeding a golden retriever and a poodle doesn't necessarily give you hypoallergenic.
Right.
So the buyer needs to be familiar with the genetics, and I'm going to run through it a little bit just to introduce them to the idea of it, and hopefully
Sure. Yeah.
line they'll understand it better. So golden retrievers carry two shed genes, and they are IC affected. And IC stands for improper coat. And what that means is that's the short face where the hair doesn't grow, and that's what people like. They like the teddy bear look on the doodles. So golden retrievers have two IC genes, and they have two shed genes, and they have a straight coat. Where poodles, they do not carry IC. They should not have shed genes. It's very rare to find that.
Right.
And obviously they're curly. So when you get a first generation doodle, all the doodles will carry one of those genes, one IC gene, one curl, and one shed. So that's why they get the wavy look. Um, but F1 doodles do shed a little bit. It's nothing like a golden retriever, but
Right.
when I brush my doodles, I get hair. They need to be combed out to get their undercoat out because it gets really thick and then it could get matted. So a good question to ask someone who has allergies is, have you been around a first generation golden doodle? And that's called an F1. And did they have allergies?
Mhm.
And if they didn't, then they know, okay, it's fine if my dog has one shed gene.
Right.
But if they did experience allergies, then they need to make sure they have zero shed genes. So you're not going to get a golden doodle or any doodle for that matter with zero shed genes until you get into like second generation.
Gotcha.
And so that's the problem. If you're working with a breeder who doesn't genetically test for these traits and matching their puppies and breeding a litter, like you have no idea what you're getting. And that's how you find a lot of doodles that they say it's a golden doodle, right? But it looks like a golden retriever
Uh-huh.
because they bred two dogs that were IC affected. Like I cannot breed Gertie and Ingrid to another first generation golden doodle because half of them would come out looking like golden retrievers.
Nice.
I have to breed first generation back to a poodle or a multi-gen doodle that is IC clear.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you have to take into account. But yeah, once you know if you're allergic to one shed gene or zero, then you know what to ask that breeder. And the breeder can't give you answers, you need to walk away from that litter
Right.
or from the breeder. Because even in second generation doodles, you'll have some puppies with 2 shed genes, some with 1. It just depends on what parentage they put together and what it'll be. But like
Sure.
the breeding I just did was F1B. So that was a golden doodle back to a poodle. So in theory, half of the litter would have 1 shed gene, half of the litter would have 0 shed genes. And I wouldn't know without genetically testing though. It doesn't matter if the puppy is curly or wavy. Those genetics are separate.
Right.
Other questions or thoughts on those things, allergies or questions breeders should or buyers should ask breeders?
Sure, there's a bajillion of them. They're not coming to me at the moment, but I do think that is, I think that's something that's really lost on a lot of people, especially even given your comment about like whether they come out looking like one or the other, because we've seen a lot of both and people are always surprised because they assume they all come out looking the same or with the same kind of coat. And I think, I wish more people looking at doodles would consider the genetic part, right? Because they're looking for something specific.
Yeah.
So
a lot of the backyard breeders out there that are just breeding doodles for a quick buck.
yes,
That's
exactly.
what they breed, but since doodles are the hot thing right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, so I know you talked about this briefly already, but can you go into more specifics about what that like socialization program from a good breeder should look like? Some of the things that you do early on that set them up for success?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, first you have your neonatal period, and that's when their eyes and ears aren't open yet. So things we do is daily handling. We want to make sure we're touching their ears and their feet and their tail and more. And a lot of it's just making sure they're healthy and gaining weight and they're clean, changing their bedding every day, making sure mom is fed and lactating. Another thing you can do is it's called ENS, which stands for early neurological stimulation. And that's where you like tickle their toes with a Q-tip, you hold them upside down, and then you hold them upright. You put them on a cold surface, and all these things affect them on a neurological level, which research
Right.
shows that it helps with their overall ability to deal with stress. I
Mhm.
do a little bit of that. I don't do a lot because I'm overall skeptical of ENS. So I just do a little bit. I don't want to overdo it.
Sure.
But really, the neonatal period is 24/7 care. But first week, me and my husband, we sleep on opposite schedules because somebody is up with the puppies at all times.
Right.
It is exhausting. We're rotating them. She had 10 puppies and only had 8 teats.
Sure.
So we had to make sure all the puppies were gaining and not getting lost or getting cold.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's exhausting. There are tears are shed. You're worried. That's the first 2 weeks basically. Then you get into the transitional period, so that's where the fun starts to begin, when their eyes and ears are starting to open. So first thing we do when we know they can hear is we start doing sudden abrupt sounds, and we try to do a handful throughout the day. So I like drop dog bowls, I pop balloons, I'm slamming doors. And what you want to do is you want to see the puppy go startle. Okay, so you
Mhm.
want to activate that startle response because at this age they are incapable of like becoming afraid of it. Like that hasn't developed yet. They're not in a fear period. But what you're doing is they startle and recover.
Mhm.
So as an adult, they're going to be able to recover from stressors a lot easier. I
Sure.
can tell you, like Pippa, my little one back here, I kept her out of my first litter. And like we were in the vet's office and she just jumped and slammed this door shut, didn't even flinch. And the vet was
Right.
like, wow, I've never seen a dog so sturdy, right? So I love that. The other things we do would be like, we keep the TV on throughout the day, from music to the news or Animal Planet, just for exposing the sounds. And then I start introducing new objects every day. And so in this beginning period where they're starting to walk and stuff, I'm using like little kitty tyke toys, little music boxes and stuff that make noise when they step on it. So that then gives them those sudden noises and stuff. We start having strangers over more. So basically, as soon as they can see and hear, they're already learning what people are.
Mhm.
And this was stressful this last time with COVID-19.
Sure.
I was like, I don't want to sacrifice my puppy's socialization skills, right?
Right.
So I still had people over, but like to protect them from parvo, I have people bring a clean, fresh pair of clothing
Mhm.
and socks. And so they have to change and put on their new socks and wash their hands before they can get in with the puppies. And with that, I haven't had any issues and I felt pretty comfortable. The next thing I start doing is I try to do one-on-one time with each puppy. And that's just something as simple as just taking away from the litter into a new room, a couple of minutes, and just the stress of leaving.
Sure.
And like at first, it's hard on them, but they adjust a lot. And I think that made a huge difference on puppies that would have otherwise been fearful if
Mhm.
they didn't experience something like that. We introduced a potty box. So I use alfalfa pellets,
Okay.
this little like guinea pig litter box thing. And like as soon as they wake up, anytime I think they're going to go to the bathroom, I keep setting them in there to start building that habit to relieve themselves away from their bedding.
Mhm.
Um, so after that, then they get into the socialization period, and that means they're good at walking and running, and they're starting to play. So that's when we're going to expand their pen. We continue adding new objects every day, but I get more complicated, like harder things to climb on, more extravagant tyke toys.
Mhm.
We introduce crates without doors. So then they're really comfortable. It really helps them transition when they go home. And we put nice beds in them so they choose to spend time in the
Sure.
crate. Um, we also start taking them into new places. So just going into my master bedroom is quite the experience for the puppy at that age. But by the end of it, they're like, I am so ready to get out of here. Also, like going outside and stuff like that. We continue having people over to socialize. I add what we call the adventure box. And so it's this little PVC box, and we have like pots, or not pots, but pans and beads and other clangy sounds hanging
Mhm.
with toys at the bottom. So it encourages them to pull and tug and
Sure.
desensitize them to a lot of crashing sounds. So that one becomes a big hit as they get older and more comfortable with it. I start having them socialize with adult dogs, so stable dogs that I know aren't going to overcorrect the puppies. So they learn how to meet other dogs. And so Gertie, for example, she's a really good auntie, and teaching them how to roll over and not to pester and bite inhibition and things like that. I continue doing one-on-one time, and having 10 puppies, it's a challenge.
Sure.
So I try, maybe once or twice a week they get one-on-one time. And we like work on stuff like sitting. So they'll jump on you, right? Because they want
Mhm.
you to pet them. And I just wait and they sit, they get a treat. We play the box game. So we introduce like a clicker, and whenever they touch the box or sniff the box, they get food for that. So I'm already conditioning them to offer behaviors.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. And then, yeah, just continuing having visitors. And right around 6 weeks old, I'm going to have kind of this big socialization day. You may have saw my video I posted of it this last time, but I have a bunch of people come over. I get a bunch of objects that the puppies have never seen before, and we get all the puppies on all these different objects to socialize them, and that really helps prepare them for their temperament test. So at 7 weeks, we temperament test all the puppies, and normally I've done the Volhard temperament test,
Yeah.
which is like 5 minutes. I did the Avidog this time, which was 20 minutes per puppy.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, it gave me so much more information.
Okay.
Um, I really loved it, but oh, it was so hard to get through. It literally took me 2 days to decipher all the puppies and what it meant. But I really think it helped me better understand which home the puppies are going to do best with.
Sure.
Then we get the snuggle puppies out. This is always fun and bittersweet when we introduce them to, so they're little dogs, little stuffed dogs. And you have a beating heart and the heat pack you can put inside of it, so it helps the puppies transition home. But we introduce it so it smells like the litter mates and it smells like mom. And I've heard reports like previous litters, they still have their snuggle puppies.
Nice.
So it makes crate training that much, just so much easier.
Sure.
But yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell.
It's so simple.
It's a lot of stuff.
And how old are they when you're sending them home?
They are 8 weeks old.
Okay. What are some red flags, maybe? And you mentioned this a little bit, but maybe even other just generic red flags people should run away from with a breeder?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So meeting the parents is an important question. And maybe you're not in a position where you can actually meet the parents, but it is an important question to ask, because if they won't let you, there's a reason for that. And a big excuse they'll use is diseases and whatnot, not exposing the parents. But I will give you personal experience. I was going to get a poodle from a breeder in Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to meet the parents, but she gave me that whole spiel, and I believed her. So when I went at 7 weeks to temperament test the puppies, they all tested independent and fearful. And when I met the parents, they wouldn't come near me. I was afraid the dad was going to bite me.
Oh,
So I had to run away from this litter.
right.
No matter what training I would do, they would always be fearful to an extent.
Right.
Also, just asking for proof of health testing. So some breeders might be hesitant of that because they don't want you to steal the information, but like they should be able to put a watermark on it and give you proof. But if not, like otherwise they should be in some sort of like the Golden Doodle Association. I have to send proof of my health testing, so that ensures the buyer that they have done all their health testing. So that's important. And a fib they'll give you is, my dog is vaccinated, you know, or my vet said my dog is healthy to be bred. Those are red flags. Run away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, you know, don't go with a breeder that makes you select at a young age. Their excuse is that buyers can't wait that long, or people want to pick off colors. Like that should not be why you're getting a dog.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to ask how many litters mom has had. You know, so if they've had, more than 5 litters, I'd be hesitant. Or if they're older than 6 years old, I would be hesitant. Same with the dad. The dad is pretty old. I mean, that's just giving you more risk of having inheritable diseases and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
and issues. We talked about temperament testing. That's important.
Right.
And so if you are thinking about getting a doodle, call up Chelsea. She'll do a temperament test for you, right?
Right. Like, I'll do them for free if people will let me do them.
Yeah.
I wish more people understood what they were and why they're helpful.
Right. I agree. And a lot of people say that it doesn't actually predict the adult temperament. And that can be true.
Sure.
But it gives you enough information that it's like, I can pick the puppy that has the best chance with me, or has the best chance with that household,
Right.
or that household, which is what I was able to direct
Mm-hmm.
to my current litter. Like in my last litter, I had puppies that like needed to go to sport homes. I had puppies that not the best choice for kids. And I had a puppy that's like, oh, this puppy is a perfect choice for a loud, busy household. But I wouldn't have known that without the temperament testing. And then the next thing I'd be wary of is how much the puppies are. So a lot of doodle breeders are in it for the quick buck.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm very cautious of any breeder that's charging around 1,000. I mean, they're probably not putting much into those puppies.
Right.
If you want a well-bred dog, you're got to expect to pay a pretty penny for it, because that breeder knows their worth. They know how much work they're putting into it. They're going to charge for it.
Right.
They've really done all of their research. And then there's a lot of scams. So people are stealing pictures from breeders and like sending private messages and sending a picture of this one dog they have for sale. So I would definitely research the heck out of them and get references before you ever send any money over.
Mm-hmm. Sure. What made you fall in love with Doodles? What is it about them that just, makes them fun for you, especially like to breed them and have so many around all the time?
Yeah, this is a fun story. So I was in denial at first, working at National Canine.
Sure.
And all my colleagues, they have German Shepherds and Malinois, and, I was under a lot of pressure to get a high caliber dog. And
Sure.
I had a German short hair pointer at the time, and he fit the bill really well. But these Doodles, they kept coming in for training, and man, they were just so wonderful to train. They were easy. They're so affectionate. Like, I found them very easy to manipulate. I could get these dogs to do whatever I wanted them to do. And they all come in with the same problems. They're hyperactive, they're jumping, they're chewing, they're play biting. So over time, I learned, whatever I touch this dog for, they're like, yes, that's what I'll do. And
Right.
that's the problem. That's what makes them so easy to screw up, too. People get these dogs and they cuddle them and coddle them, and they come in with jumping, chewing, and play biting problems because you can't raise this dog and say, no, bad dog, you can't do that, or push the dog off of you for jumping. All of that is just reinforcing the behavior.
Mhm.
So, after I got my first Doodle, I was hooked. I mean, it was just so wonderful to have a dog that was so biddable. At the end of the day, training dogs, like, it's nice to go home and be like, have this dog that will do whatever I ask her to do without
Sure.
question. They're really good about turning on and off their energy level. So, like, right now, they look like the calmest dogs in the world, but they're not. They just know how to fit into my lifestyle. Like, before I started this meeting, they were all running around, playing, you know, roughhousing with each other. I said, go place, and then they just turn it off.
Right.
So that's really nice with my lifestyle.
Mhm.
So after I got my first one, I was like, I knew I wanted to get into breeding. So I contacted my breeder, and she was willing to work with me, and she mentored me along the way. So now I've been breeding for 3 years. I've only had 4 litters so far, and we'll have about 2 or 3 more over the next year and a half or so. So
Mhm.
it's nice, like a part-time kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. So I don't mind doing it once or twice a year. And
Right.
then other than that, I'll be a full-time dog trainer.
Right. Um, and I know, you've probably hit a lot of these, but like, if you've got, 2 seconds to talk to somebody, like, what are the highlights you're hitting for somebody, like, that you wish they knew about breeders or Doodles? Like, what's the big thing you see or misinformation that you wish?
Yeah. Okay. First, we'll talk about breeders first. I wish people understood how hard the job is, because it's an all-day job. I mean, you spend many nights worrying, you lose sleep, you cry over those puppies that you can't save. You're always worrying about their health. I spent twice the value of a puppy at the emergency vet trying to save it, and I lost it. So it kind of gives you some PTSD over time. There's so much planning involved to bring a litter to fruition, from the health testing to selecting your stud, timing for the breeding. And then when the litter arrives, you're whelping the litter. You have to find acceptable homes, interviewing people, raising and caring for the puppies. There's just a lot of stuff breeders do that the average dog owner just has no idea. And so
Right.
that's why I think a well-bred dog is worth every penny. After going through my experiences raising a litter, I feel like I just would never spend less than $2,000 on a dog, whether it's a poodle or a lab or a doodle. A well-bred dog is a well-bred dog. Like, it's more than just bringing home a puppy. It's you're paying for all the hard work that breeder put in to raise your dog to
Right.
be a wonderful package to build off of, you
Mhm.
know? Um, okay, so now let's talk about Doodles. So what are some things I wish people understood about Doodles? People can't wait for the fad to be over, and I don't think it's ever going to be over, considering how
Problem.
addicted I am to Doodles. They're actually working towards a standard.
Mhm.
Golden or Doodle breeders in general don't want to see that they get like into AKC or anything like that, because we don't want to close our stud books, or we want to be able to mix things in. But they are considering calling it the bearded retriever, I heard recently.
Okay.
um so there's that kind of been going on. But I mean, if you get them trained and groomed, they're just awesome dogs. But I think the issue is people purchase them, they don't realize how much the dog actually needs. They're buying them because they're freaking cute and adorable little puppies. But, my Doodles need groomed every 6 weeks. And their wavy coat, I couldn't tell you how much grooming a curly coat needed.
Sure.
And they need a job. I mean, do something with them. Don't just leave them in your house. Um, and then I'm always bothered when people want to call them mutts, just because many purebred dogs were a mixture of breeds at one time. So I just feel lucky to witness the creation of a breed in my lifetime because
Sure.
it happened for so long. And we're taking some awesome traits from two different breeds and putting them together.
Hmm.
So what I'm all for it with other breeds too. They make different sport breeds for agility and stuff that I think is pretty cool.
Hmm. Um, well, anything else that you want to add from really any of these subjects? Any other thoughts or stories or things you want to share with folks?
Well, one thing I want to share, if you're interested in getting a doodle, I would definitely check out the Golden Doodle Association of North America. It just makes the search for a well-bred doodle so much easier because like everybody in that organization have put in a lot of research and time. And
Yeah, that's
over the
good to
years,
know.
I've gotten to know them in these doodle breeding groups as they create their programs and stuff. So that will definitely make your search a lot easier. I think there's the Australian Labradoodle Association too. I'm not too familiar with it, but I would try to find a breed club of some kind. Um, Also, just looking for the supportive breeder versus that disconnected breeder. There's breeders that sell you a puppy and send you on your way. There's other breeders that are helping you. They're sending you purchase lists and they're sending you information on how to raise a puppy and maybe offering puppy classes or whatnot. Like they should be happy to answer your questions. And I know that I am. When I have someone who asks a lot of questions, I know they're doing their research. So I know they'll appreciate, everything we've done put into these
Right.
dogs.
Do you have an application process for your doodles?
Yeah, I do have an application, and so once they send it in, I call them and I quiz them on their application. I try to poke more about temperament and their experience. I also give them the scare about dog training. I'm like, are you prepared for the cost of dog training?
Sure.
At minimum, it's going to cost you probably about $1,000 for, I would seek out a trainer, a board and train of some kind, like you're going to need it. Puppy classes, like that's a given. That's going to
Right.
cost you about maybe $100 for some sort of group class. Like I want to make sure I send them my prices to help them price out trainers in their area,
Hmm.
stuff like that. Like, because I want a buyer that wants to commit to their dog and not think about, I'm getting a dog and I'm going to train it later when it's older and has developed habits. Like,
Right.
can't raise a dog passively. It's all happening now.
Yes, absolutely. Well, listen, I super appreciate you being willing and able to sit down and have this chat because I think it's information that gets lost and really needs to be out there a lot more often and with a lot more detail, especially with our newer mixes and people being maybe confused about what a good breeding looks like, regardless of the breed. So I appreciate it, and I will. If you want to send me some of your contact info too, I'll tag that on the video so if people are
Yeah,
looking for a doodle, they can look your way.
awesome. I
But
also
really
want to
appreciate it.
I have an Instagram page for Bridget. So you
Okay.
can follow her Instagram at Puppy Bridget's Diary. And I am sharing all my little tips and tricks of just the little stuff you don't think about on how to raise the perfect puppy.
Nice. That's awesome.
Definitely follow.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Margaret. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
Absolutely.